Have you ever eaten breakfast only to feel hungry again an hour or two later? Maybe you grabbed a bowl of cereal, a piece of toast, a muffin, or maybe you ate what looked like a perfectly normal breakfast. But by 10:30 in the morning, you're already thinking about lunch. Here's the problem. Not every breakfast keeps you full the same way. Some foods are easy to eat quickly but don't have much protein or fiber. Others give you a combination of protein, fiber, healthy fats, or simply enough volume to make breakfast much more satisfying. And that can make a huge difference when you're trying to get through the morning without constantly reaching for snacks. So today, we're looking at 9 breakfast foods that can help keep you full until lunch. Some are obvious, a few might surprise you, and near the end, we'll talk about one of the easiest ways to turn an ordinary breakfast into something dramatically more satisfying. Let's start with number 9. Number 9, berries. Berries probably aren't the first thing that comes to mind when you think of a filling breakfast. After all, strawberries, blueberries, raspberries, and blackberries aren't particularly high in protein. So why are they here? Fiber and volume. Berries contain water and fiber, which can add a surprising amount of volume to your breakfast without requiring an enormous portion. But there's an important catch. A small handful of berries by itself probably isn't going to keep most people satisfied all morning. The trick is what you combine them with. Add berries to Greek yogurt, mix them into oatmeal, serve them alongside eggs and whole grain toast, or combine them with chia seeds and yogurt. Now you're adding fiber and volume to a breakfast that already contains protein, and that's something you'll notice throughout this video. The most satisfying breakfasts aren't necessarily built around one magical food, they're usually built from smart combinations, and the next food makes that even easier. Number 8, nuts. Almonds, walnuts, pistachios, peanuts. Whatever you prefer, nuts can be a surprisingly useful breakfast addition. They provide some protein, fiber, and unsaturated fats. And because they're so easy to add to other foods, you don't need to completely change your breakfast. Eating oatmeal, add some walnuts, having Greek yogurt, add almonds or pistachios, eating a piece of fruit because you're running late. A small portion of nuts can make that breakfast considerably more substantial. But here's where people sometimes get into trouble. Nuts are calorie dense. A small amount can contain quite a few calories. So this isn't necessarily a case where more is better. You don't need half a bag. Think of nuts as something that upgrades your breakfast rather than something you mindlessly eat straight from the container. And if you like the convenience of nuts, you're probably going to love number 7. Number 7, chia seeds. These tiny seeds don't look particularly impressive, but nutritionally they're interesting. Chia seeds contain fiber, some protein, and unsaturated fats. And when you mix them with liquid, they absorb water and develop a thick, gel-like texture. That's why they're often used to make chia pudding, but you don't have to eat an entire bowl of chia pudding to use them. You can add chia seeds to oatmeal, mix them into yogurt, add them to overnight oats, or combine them with berries. They're an incredibly easy way to add more fiber to a breakfast you're already eating. And that's important because fiber can help slow digestion and contribute to fullness. But chia seeds alone aren't the secret to staying full until noon. Remember the pattern: fiber plus protein plus a balanced meal. Which brings us to a breakfast food that's been around forever. Number 6, whole grain toast. Bread has somehow become the villain of breakfast. But bread itself isn't automatically the problem. The type of bread and what you put on it can make a huge difference. Compare 2 breakfasts. Breakfast number 1, white toast with a little jam. Breakfast number 2, whole grain toast topped with eggs, avocado, cottage cheese, or peanut butter. Those are very different meals. Whole grains can provide more fiber than highly refined alternatives, and once you pair that bread with protein or healthy fats, you've built something much more substantial than plain toast. So don't just think, should I eat bread? Think, what am I eating with it? Because toast can either be the entire breakfast, or it can become the foundation for a much more satisfying one. Speaking of foundations, number 5 is one of the most versatile foods on this list. Number 5, cottage cheese. Cottage cheese has made a serious comeback, and there's a good reason it works so well at breakfast: protein. A protein-rich breakfast can generally be more satisfying than one built mostly around refined carbohydrates. And cottage cheese makes adding protein extremely easy. You can eat it with berries, add sliced peaches, sprinkle on some nuts or seeds, put it on whole grain toast, or go savory with tomatoes, cucumber, pepper, and herbs. And here's what makes cottage cheese particularly useful. It requires almost no preparation, no cooking, no blender, no complicated recipe. Open the container, add a few ingredients, and breakfast is basically done. Just keep an eye on the nutrition label if sodium or added ingredients are something you're watching, because products can vary. But if you don't like cottage cheese, don't worry. The next option might be much more familiar. Number 4, eggs. Eggs are probably one of the most obvious foods on this list, but they're here for a reason. They're convenient, they're versatile, and most importantly for this conversation, they provide high-quality protein. You can scramble them, boil them, poach them, make an omelette, or put them on whole grain toast. But here's where breakfast gets interesting. 2 eggs by themselves might not keep everyone satisfied all the way until lunch. So instead of thinking about eggs as the entire meal, use them as the protein anchor. Imagine eggs, whole grain toast, some avocado, and a piece of fruit. Now you have protein, fiber, carbohydrates, fat, and a much larger volume of food. Or make an omelette filled with vegetables and have some fruit on the side. That's a completely different breakfast from grabbing a pastry on your way out the door. And this is really the central idea of this video. Don't search for one perfect breakfast food, build a breakfast that works together. Now let's move into the top 3. And number 3 is probably already sitting in millions of American kitchens. Number 3, oatmeal. Oatmeal has something many breakfast foods are missing: soluble fiber. Oats contain a type of soluble fiber called beta-glucan. When mixed with liquid, this fiber helps create that thick texture you associate with oatmeal. And because soluble fiber can slow digestion, oatmeal can be a very satisfying base for breakfast. But notice that I said base, because there's a huge difference between plain oatmeal with a pile of brown sugar and oatmeal topped with berries, nuts, seeds, and maybe Greek yogurt. One is mostly giving you carbohydrates with a lot of added sweetness. The other gives you a much more balanced combination of fiber, protein, and fat. And oatmeal is incredibly customizable. Want something sweet? Try berries, cinnamon, chia seeds, and a little peanut butter. Want more protein? Add Greek yogurt on top after cooking. Prefer something savory? Yes, savory oatmeal exists. Add an egg, vegetables, herbs, and seasonings. It sounds strange if you've only ever eaten sweet oatmeal, but don't knock it until you've tried it. And if oatmeal isn't your thing, number 2 may be one of the easiest high-protein breakfasts you can buy. Number 2, Greek yogurt. Walk down the yogurt aisle in an American grocery store, and you'll probably see an overwhelming number of options. Regular yogurt, Greek yogurt, flavored yogurt, low-fat, non-fat, full-fat, high-protein, dessert-style yogurts. It can get confusing quickly, but plain Greek yogurt has one major advantage when we're talking about fullness. It's typically rich in protein, and protein is one of the nutrients that can help make a meal more satisfying. But again, we can make it better. Start with plain Greek yogurt, add blueberries or strawberries, add chia seeds, add a small portion of walnuts, maybe add some oats. Now look at what you've created: protein from the yogurt, fiber from the fruit, oats and seeds, healthy fats from the nuts and seeds, and plenty of texture: creamy, crunchy, sweet, fresh. That's the kind of breakfast that feels like an actual meal. One thing worth checking is added sugar. Some flavored yogurts can contain quite a bit. That doesn't automatically make them forbidden foods. But if you're eating yogurt because you want a nutritious, filling breakfast, comparing nutrition labels can help you understand what you're actually buying. And now, we've reached number 1, but number 1 isn't really a single food, it's something more useful. Number 1, the protein plus fiber breakfast. Here's the biggest takeaway from this entire video. Stop looking for the one magical breakfast food that will somehow eliminate hunger. Instead, Build breakfast around protein and fiber. Start with a protein source, eggs, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, or another protein-rich food you enjoy. Then add a fiber-rich food, oats, whole grain toast, berries, other fruit, seeds, vegetables. Then, if it fits the meal, include some healthy fat from foods like nuts, seeds, or avocado. Suddenly, breakfast becomes much more substantial. For example, Greek yogurt, berries, chia seeds, and walnuts. Or eggs, whole grain toast, avocado, and fruit. Or oatmeal with berries, chia seeds, nuts, and Greek yogurt. Notice something. We already covered almost every ingredient in those breakfasts. The secret isn't discovering some exotic superfood. It's combining ordinary foods intelligently. But what about breakfast cereal? Now, before we finish, we need to talk about something millions of people eat every morning. Cereal. Is cereal automatically a bad breakfast? No. But cereals vary enormously. Some contain plenty of whole grains and fiber. Others are heavily refined and contain a lot of added sugar while providing relatively little protein or fiber. So instead of judging cereal by the picture on the front of the box, turn it around. Look at the nutrition facts label, check the fiber, check the added sugar, check the serving size, and think about what you're eating with it. You could take a higher fiber cereal and add milk or yogurt, berries, and nuts. Now you've created something considerably more filling. Again, the combination matters. What about skipping breakfast? And there's one more thing worth mentioning. You don't necessarily have to eat breakfast simply because the clock says it's morning. Some people wake up hungry, others don't. If you genuinely aren't hungry in the morning and your overall eating pattern works well for you, you don't need to force down breakfast just because somebody told you it's the most important meal of the day. But if you do eat breakfast and you're constantly starving an hour later, that's when it's worth looking at what your breakfast actually contains. Because a sweet coffee and a pastry and a bowl of Greek yogurt with berries, oats, and nuts may both technically be called breakfast, but they're very different meals. The simple breakfast rule. So tomorrow morning, before you eat, ask yourself one simple question: where's the protein and where's the fiber? You don't need a perfect breakfast, you don't need 9 different superfoods, and you definitely don't need an expensive supplement. You just want a meal that's satisfying enough to get you through your morning. So remember the 9 foods we talked about: berries, nuts, chia seeds, whole grain toast, cottage cheese, eggs, oatmeal, Greek yogurt, and most importantly, the combination of protein and fiber. Try combining 2 or 3 of them instead of relying on one food alone, because sometimes the difference between being hungry again at 10 a.m. and comfortably making it to lunch isn't eating more breakfast, it's building a better breakfast. And now I want to hear from you. What's your go-to breakfast? Eggs, oatmeal, Greek yogurt? Or are you one of those people who survives until noon on nothing but coffee? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to Mind and Motion for simpler, science-based videos about food, health, and your body. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.